Alright, welcome to page 4 of your unit circle packet. On this page we start out with some vocabulary you have to be familiar with. So let's go ahead and read this first paragraph and then we're going to discuss what these words mean and we're going to look at some examples. All of the angles with their vertices on the origin are in standard position. With the initial side, the starting point, is on the x-axis and the terminal side indicates the angle of rotation. Positive angles measures are generated by a counterclockwise rotation. This is really important and it's a little bit weird at first, but counterclockwise is in general the standard way to rotate angles. While a negative angle measure would be generated by a clockwise rotation. So if you go clockwise, you're going in the negative direction. If you're going counterclockwise, you're going in the positive direction. This is really important and we need to remember this throughout our math careers. Angles that have the same initial and terminal side are called coterminal. So coterminal just means that they have the same starting point and ending point. This is going to make a little more sense as we go through some examples. And lastly, reference angles are always acute angles drawn from the terminal side to the x-axis. So we're going to look at 3 examples. So go ahead and draw 3 x and y axes. I'll do that right now. You do that on your paper. Okay, the first angle we're going to look at is 150 degrees. As I make these angles, I'm going to go through each of the vocabulary words. So when we start our angle, this is our initial side or our starting point. We're going to rotate our angle through 150 degrees, which is going to put us into the second quadrant with 30 degrees remaining until we get back to the x-axis. So this is what a 150 degree angle looks like. This is the initial side, this is the terminal side, and this angle trapped between the x-axis and the terminal side is our reference angle. A negative angle that would be coterminal with 150 would be a negative 180 plus 30 would be a negative 210 degree angle. These two angles are coterminal because they both start at the same initial side and they both end at the same terminal side. However, the 150 degree angle is positive and the negative 210 degree angle is negative. Let's look at another example. If we look at a 45 degree angle and we draw that, the initial side is going to be the positive x-axis and the terminal side is going to exactly cut our quadrant 1 in half. This is our terminal side, this is our initial side. In this case, the reference angle is exactly the same as our angle because our angle and our reference angle are both acute. Alright, so that's kind of nice there. Our reference angle is also 45 degrees. The reference angle is what we use when we calculate sine, cosine, tangent, and all of those other trig functions. So this reference angle is really important to identify. Over here, the reference angle was a 30 degree angle because that was the gap between the x-axis and the terminal side. In this example, our reference angle is a 45 degree angle because that is the gap between our terminal side and our initial side. A coterminal angle with our positive 45 degree angle might be a negative 315 degree angle, or we could go past a full rotation. So another way to get a coterminal angle with 45 degrees would be to go in the positive counterclockwise direction, and at this point we're to 360, but to end up at the terminal side we need to add 45. So 360 plus 45 degrees would be a 405 degree angle. So at this point we have our negative 315 degree angle, our positive 405 degree angle, and our positive 45 degree angle. There's an easy way to get coterminal angles, so look for a pattern as we do the last one. The last angle we're going to explore is going to be 280 degrees. So if we look at our 280 degree angle, that's going to be past our 180. So we're going to start at our initial side. We're going to go past 180. We're going to go past 270, which puts us on the negative y-axis, and we're going to add 10 more degrees to get to 280. Again, we're just sketching the angles, so it's not a perfect 280 degree angle, but that's okay. Our reference angle is always the gap between the x-axis and the terminal side, and it must be an acute angle. So this is our reference angle. Again, that would be the angle we would use to calculate sine, cosine, tangent. So remember, your reference angle you can always calculate by figuring out what the angle measure is of that gap. Since this is 10 degrees, this has to be an 80-degree angle. So our reference angle is an 80-degree angle. All right, let's think of some coterminal angles. At this point, hopefully you're thinking, I know a quick way to do this. A coterminal angle with 280 would be go backwards 80, so a negative 80-degree angle, or in the negative direction. Or we could go all the way around 360 and then add on 280. So go ahead, use your calculator, figure out what that would be. You should get a positive 640. We could also go backward more than once or in the negative direction. So let's look at what that might be. So if we go in the reverse, if we go negative 360 and then we subtract 80, we'll get another negative coterminal angle. So if we take 280 and we subtract 360, we get our negative 80-degree angle, which was our first negative coterminal angle. If we subtract 360 again, we get another negative coterminal angle, which is negative 440. So in essence, you can get several coterminal angles just by adding or subtracting 360 degrees. So this is a nice thing to remember when you're looking at coterminal angles. So let's go ahead and do one more example, and then I'm going to let you do the rest of these on your own. All right, let's take a look at A. First thing you want to do is draw your X and Y axes so we can draw this angle in standard position. And remember, each quadrant represents 90 degrees. So if I'm doing a 135-degree angle, I'm going to start at my positive x-axis. That's my initial side. I'm going to go past 90 degrees, but I'm not going to go quite to 180. And if you think about it, 135 is 90 plus 45, so again, that angle is going to split quadrant 2 exactly in half. This is my 135-degree angle. This is my theta. However, we can't use that angle to calculate sine, cosine, and tangent. We need this reference angle. That reference angle is the gap, and that reference angle happens to be a 45-degree angle. So again, if you use that reference angle, then you've got your nice right triangle that you can use for your trig ratio. So your reference angle is 45 degrees. And now we want one coterminal angle that has a positive value and one with a negative value. So we're going to take our 135 and we're going to add or subtract 360 degrees to get our coterminal angles. So go ahead and do that and see if your answers agree with mine. Alright, so two positive coterminal angles I got were 495 degrees and 855 degrees, and two negative coterminal angles I got were negative 225 and negative 585. It's really important when you're drawing these angles that you draw this arc. This represents 135 degrees. However, if we were to draw it like this, that represents our 495 degrees. So you can kind of see with the spirals how many times you've rotated around the axis. So make sure you're drawing your pictures accurately, because that's what it means to draw each angle below in standard position. Alright, I want you with your group, if you want, to work on the other problems. So go ahead and do B, C, D, E, and F, and I'll post the answers so you can see those. Alright, so here are the answers all cleaned up for you. I hope that you are understanding how these are working a little bit. The most important thing you need to remember are these reference angles are super important. They are what we're going to use to get our trig functions, our trig ratios, sine, cosine, tangent, and all of the other ones as we work through these problems. So make sure that you are identifying that gap between the x-axis and your terminal side as your reference angle. I hope this makes sense. Go ahead and move on to the next page in the packet.